bliss of higher realms. And their self is not limited to the physical space. And it is not only in their consciousness that they're experiencing this, because there are physical changes that happen when we experience the higher states of consciousness. No? So I would love for all of us to go back and explore self with intent of expansion, development, and further growth beyond the ideas that we've formed about self. How's that?
Good day, beloveds. How do you do? Welcome to Talks from the Heart with Mandy, brought to you by Agape Wellness Coaching, a place where being begins at root. I am Mandy, a spirituality teacher and transformational relationship coach, as well as founder of Agape Wellness Coaching, and I'll be journeying with you talking heart to heart.
Welcome once again, beloveds, to another episode of Talks from the Heart with Mandy, where we explore the depths of spiritual and mental wellness, personal growth, and self-discovery in relations. I am your host, Mandy, still journeying with you, talking heart to heart. It sure has been a moment since our last time together. I was away facilitating workshops, but I'm back and happy to join you as we continue our wellness journey. Remember, in our last episode, we started the exploration of relations, and at the end of that episode, I announced that we would focus on self in relation to and with others, but I realized that perhaps a better place to start is to focus on oneself. In today's episode, we are diving into the topic that is foundational to everything else in our lives, that is one's relationship with one's self. My beloveds, go on, grab your favorite beverage, sit comfortably as we continue our exploration of relations. Now, today's episode will not be like previous episodes wherein I approached our subject with varied lenses from various schools of human studies. But the approach we will employ will be one that all of us understand from having lived life. We are wearing live goggles, exploring our everyday observations of relations. Again, beloveds, today we continue our exploration of relations with a special focus on the self, and that is one's relationship with oneself. I chose to start with interpersonal relations, that is, relations with oneself, instead of the previously proposed topic. And this is because I work with a lot of people, and as I engage with clients and participants at our workshops, I could not help but realize that the issue is a recurring theme instead of a once-off instance. And I decided, no, perhaps this is the perfect place to start. I noticed that a lot of people who struggle with relating with others, whether be it their spouses, lovers, colleagues, friends, etc., are in most cases people who suffer from having poor quality interpersonal relations. It is in most cases people who have poor quality interpersonal relations. I'm talking about the many people who have a hard time relating to themselves, so much that they cannot even enjoy time trying to get to know themselves outside of the perceptions of others that they have assumed and defined themselves by. And this is with limitedness that comes from their lack of exploration of self. When one does not explore themselves and get to know themselves, they will be limited to assuming and defining themselves by other people's perceptions of who they are, but not from a place of knowing who they are, not from a place of self-defining. They present to the world what they think the world wants them to be, instead of being who they truly are. So I here to maybe address that. Let's kick the windows and the doors open and have open discussions. We live in a world that promotes brokenness and disconnectedness from who we are as beings. It is in the lack of direct socializing, toxic individualistic culture that is promoted by modern day society that is most often than not masked in the guise of healing and self-care, self-love, whilst the processes that are employed are just toxic fragmenting and compartmentalizing of every bit of our humanity, so much that we're unable to function as whole beings that are members of the greater whole, to a point that even when we realize that we are members of the greater whole, connected to each other, each serving a purpose within the greater whole to which we belong, for the greater good of oneself, others, and the whole to which we belong again, we somehow choose to exist in silos, forsaking the oneness that is a way of our source, which is the Godhead that is in all things, in and throughout all of creation. Sometimes it baffles me how we continue to live as though we're not aware of the impact that we have on the whole and all of its members. We forget that oneness is who we are. We're created in the likeness of God. We're created in the likeness of God. We are created in the likeness of Source. So everything about us is like Source. So if we forget that, the impact that we have on the whole is just so big. And we don't realize it until it's too late. We affect the next person whether with our action or inaction, with our decisions or indecisiveness. We are impacting somebody out there and we're not even aware of it. But again, it is understandable that we behave and act the way we do. This is because we are encouraged by the culture within the societies we find ourselves in, right? But it's time for a change. There's a wave of awakening that's happening right now. It is time we get to know ourselves. It is time we get to remember who we are within this whole and our impact on this whole, right? We cannot continue to live like we don't have access to information or even access to knowledge. The minute the wave of awakening happens, it impacts each and everyone, even those who are still asleep. And in this digital age where information is accessible, there's really no excuse to exist passively as though you're not aware of what is going on around you or within you. Information is accessible to everyone these days. Now, I'm going to quickly move on and not be so hard on people, but what is the self that we're talking about here? What is the self? Who is the self? What is the self? What is the self? When I talk about the self, I'm talking about the entirety of a person, an individual's essential being, their true essence and uniqueness, their knowledge, values, beliefs, and so much more. See, the self is a deeply intricate, multidimensional construct. It encompasses how we see and understand ourselves, how we are shaped by our interactions with others, and how our brains and bodies contribute to a sense of our identity. Understanding the self requires insights from multiple disciplines, each shedding light on different aspects of this fundamental aspect of the human experience. The self is a concept that is fundamental in spirituality, philosophy, and psychology, but each discipline approaches it from different perspectives. For those of you who've heard previous episodes, I'm sure you could tell that for a moment I'm tempted to stray from talking from the heart to discussing the topic from my understanding of the varied lenses I applied in my studies of humanity. But this is Talks from the Heart, and we will be talking from the heart today. And I'm hoping that as you're wearing your life goggles, we will enjoy today's episode. Now, we know that this deeply intricate and multidimensional construct called self is shaped by numerous factors. In psychology, self is often explored through the lens of self-concept, which refers to the beliefs, thoughts, and perceptions that a person has about themselves. So this self-concept also is formed by various components, and those components would include self-awareness, which is one's ability to recognize oneself as an individual distinct from the environment and others. The second component would be self-image. This is how one sees oneself, which can be influenced by various factors, including physical appearance, personal achievement, and feedback from others. Now, with feedback from others, we get that feedback from our interpersonal relations, our interpersonal relationships. Our social self needs to be in a healthy state in its interaction with others. So it is important that when we interact with others, we have healthy relations so that we can also maintain healthy self-image using feedback from these interpersonal relations. And again, it isn't that we cannot form healthy self-images without feedback from others, but this feedback from others also helps us maintain healthy intrapersonal relationships. Because remember, if you do not have a healthy intrapersonal space, it spills into your interpersonal relations. So that feedback is very vital because it gives you an idea as to how you're doing in your intrapersonal space. So another component would be self-esteem. That is one's overall evaluation of their worth or value. High self-esteem is often linked to positive feelings about oneself. High self-esteem often correlates with positive feelings about oneself, while low self-esteem can correlate with negative feelings. Finally, we have the self-identity, the unique set of characteristics, roles, and attributes that define a person and distinguish them from others. This includes aspects like gender identity, cultural identity, and personal interests. So this would be the self explained in terms of psychology when we are looking through the lens of the self concept. And you also have this aspect that is spirituality. Again, spirituality views the self from a different perspective. In spirituality, the self is often seen as an aspect of one's being that transcends the physical and material world. Main interpretations would include true self versus the ego. Many spiritual traditions distinguish between the true self, which is also known as the higher self, and the ego. The true self is often viewed as the eternal, unchanging essence of a person, while the ego is the temporary constructed identity tied to worldly experiences and desires. So that's basically the main theme or main view of many spiritual traditions. And truly, we cannot limit the self to ideas. We cannot limit it to just these ideas, right? The self is experienced at varied levels. A gent by the name of William James, who was an American psychologist and philosopher, he happens to also be one of the first educators and or founding fathers in the field of psychology in the 19th century, devoted himself to an intently focused study of the self. He talked about the material self, the social self, and spiritual self. And in most recent times, we have seen a German-American psychologist named Ulrich Neisser introducing the idea of the ecological self. And I will briefly delve into these ideas that were brought to us by some of the brilliant minds in the field of psychology. See, the ecological self talks of the self in its integrated form, the integrated form of the self that can be physically distinguished in time and space. And the interpersonal self speaks to the self which interacts with others in the social relations. Then there's the extended self, which is the self that exists in our memories. This aspect of self is experienced on a more personal and private level. Lastly, we have what we call the conceptual self, which is simply the idea that one holds about themselves. We all have a set of developed ideas about what can be included within the category of self. This conceptualization is promoted in each culture in varied manners. It is an all-embracing web of ideas about the self. So that's why I say we cannot simply limit self to what we are discussing here. As I speak of the self, I speak of the entirety of our beings. I speak of and to the conscious, unconscious, subconscious, the descendant, transcendent, and ascendant self, the self in all of its experiences and states, the part of us that exists isolated in solitude yet relating, the social self that is like all the other members of the conscious collective, connected and relating with all that is, was, and forever will be. That is the source that is present and alive in and through all of creation, from the beginning to the end of it, if there be an end, right? We have to be careful not to limit self to just the ideas that we've come to understand, but through exploration and expansion of who self truly is, because self is truly not limited to these ideas that we've formed over time. Every time we self-explore, we find so much more about the self that we cannot afford to limit it to what the specialists in psychology, the specialists in philosophy and spirituality have given us. We need to be open to getting to know more of the self concept. We need to be willing to expand what we know about the self. We need to be willing to expand our knowledge of the self. And this happens through self-exploration. We're not limited to just being here and experiencing the physical. Neither are we limited to being transcendent beings, ascended beings who are experiencing the bliss of the spiritual and higher realms. We are multidimensional. We exist through the various dimensions. That's why I do not believe for a moment that self is limited to this space and time or just this physical dimension wherein we currently exist. I believe for some reason, and I could be wrong, I believe that we exist through multiple dimensions as beings that are present here. We have those moments where we transcend beyond the physical, whether it be through meditation, whether it be through outer body experiences. There are people who actually experience those. They experience the bliss of higher realms, and their self is not limited to the physical space. And it is not only in their consciousness that they're experiencing this, because there are physical changes that happen when we experience the higher states of consciousness. Now, so I would love for all of us to go back and explore self with intent of expansion, development, and further growth beyond the ideas that we've formed about self. How's that? Now, let us go back to understanding what a relationship is. What is a relationship? What is a relationship? I know that most of you know what a relationship is, but for those who do not know what a relationship is, it is simply a manner in which two or more people or things are connected. How the two or more people or things in connections regard and behave in their interactions with each other. That's what a relationship is. That is what a relationship is. Now, you may be saying, okay, since a relationship is between two or more people or things, what do you mean when you're talking about one relating to and with themselves? You may be wondering, you may be saying, isn't it that relationships speak of the manner in which two or more people or things interact and behave towards each other? And those set interactions, of course, occur within a provided social context, right? It would mean that there would be subjects and objects within the relationship, and this would be something that happens interchangeably amongst parties involved in relations. Again, it is imperative that one remembers that the functions and roles we occupy or play within our social contexts play a major role in how relations pan out, whether be it intrapersonal or interpersonal relations. It is important to remember that social context matters. It is one of those things that factor in shaping our relationships. So what exactly is relationship with self? What exactly is a relationship with self? What exactly is a relationship with self? At the core of it, at its core, a relationship with self is all about how one interacts with and perceives themselves. It is very important how you as a being interact with and perceive yourself is what relationship with self is all about. It is the internal dialogue that one maintains and runs through one's mind, the way one treats themselves, and the degree of understanding and compassion one extends to themselves. Just like any other relationship, it can be nurturing and supportive, or it can be neglectful and critical. This relationship forms the core of our identity and influences how we interact with the world around us. So when I speak of a relationship that one has with oneself, I am speaking of us as beings knowing and understanding our multidimensional nature, understanding and getting to know every facet of our beings, and accepting the good and bad, the darkness and the light alike. Being able to marry and integrate all of the facets of our beings into a whole, maintaining a balance even when it seems impossible. Again, when I speak of one's relationship with oneself, I'm talking about the state of our interpersonal affairs, the state of the interpersonal affairs of a being. We all know that as beings, we are multifaceted in nature, and the way relations are within the self-concept is more to do with how one sees, experiences, understands, and knows the various facets of their being as they are ever evolving as we go through the exchange of expressions between the inner or spirit man and the external world wherein we exercise our expression for the practical experience of our spirit man. But you may be sitting there wondering, why is this relationship so important? Why is it more important than any other relationship? Now, why is the interpersonal relationship so important? One's relationship with oneself sets the tone for every other relationship in one's life. Your relationship with self sets the tone for all the other relationships you have in your life or you'll ever have. If one is critical, unkind, disconnected from themselves, and or even doubting their worth, this negativity spills over into one's interactions with others. Conversely, a healthy, loving relationship with oneself fosters positivity, resilience, authentic connections with others. A healthy relationship with oneself can lead to more fulfilling relations, deeper sense of inner peace, and so much more fulfillment in one's life. Again, the quality of one's interpersonal relations sets a tone for all other relationships that one has with others, no matter the nature of relations. So it is imperative that a person maintains a healthy state, a healthy quality state of their interpersonal relations. So again, it is that thing that is inspired by my seeing people struggle to have healthy interpersonal relations. And you may be asking, why is it that most people struggle to maintain healthy quality state of their interpersonal relationships? It is something that happens. But why do most people struggle to maintain a healthy quality state of their interpersonal relations? Why? Human beings are social species that we are innately capable of relating. But even with this natural ability to relate, most of us struggle to maintain healthy quality state of one's interpersonal relations. We're not born incapable of maintaining a healthy relationship with oneself, but somehow through our ways of training our children, we tend to have a way of making children disconnect from themselves. The natural instinct to self-nurture, to nurture their inner beings through play, self-talk, and just being who they are is replaced by fear, discouragement, sometimes by us reflecting to our children our childhood traumas, making such be a reality they have to live through because we may be unhealed, living out our brokenness and disconnectedness, all this because one lacks self-awareness, one lacks awareness of self, others, and the state of their interpersonal space and the wellness thereof. I've also noticed that a lot of people who have trouble connecting to self and relating with oneself have actually experienced trauma to some degree. And the sad thing is, most of the trauma they experience is a secondhand trauma. It isn't necessarily them experiencing the person that traumatized them. It is from them getting to live with the reflection of the person who traumatized their tormentor or the person who gave them trauma. It's like a parent who experiences trauma and never get to heal from that trauma. If they're not careful, they're reflecting their trauma to their child through their inherited ways of child rearing that are not necessarily okay. They never get to be the parent that their child needs, right? So for this reason, they expose the child to what they were exposed to. And in most cases, what they were exposed to was limited to them and it did not go beyond them. What their child is going to experience at the hands of their grandparents, it's never going to be what they experienced. In fact, when their child hears from their parent, this is what my parents did to me, it's going to be like, okay, you're lying. The person that I'm experiencing must either be a changed person or you experience somebody else. Because that version that you got to experience as a child to a parent that traumatized you is no longer there. There is a new person who has evolved past the trauma they passed down to you. Now you're exposing it to your child, making that child a traumatized person who's unable to relate to themselves. And it is very unfortunate because people live for the relations. They will now live through their life trying to please whoever, whether be it trauma from the parent, trauma from friends, trauma from schoolmates, trauma from teachers. They're going to live their lives disconnected from who they are, what they want to be, only to make sure that they are secure in these various relationships. Most people from a very tender age are taught to nurture relations, whether be it relations with parents, family, relatives, schoolmates, teachers, friends. A lot of us go through life living through and for various relationships, but we neglect the one relationship that matters most, that is one's relationship with themselves, because of the various conditions these people find themselves in throughout their childhood or throughout whatever part of their life. This leaves them disconnected to themselves. They're disconnected from self, they're disconnected from self because they are living for these relationships that they must nurture. And it doesn't matter how much it hurts them, how far away it drags them from themselves. It's just for them, it is important that these relationships remain because they have been the only constant thing in their lives. See? So it is imperative that we seek necessary help. When we find ourselves not able to relate to ourselves, we need to find out, we need to look within, we need to reflect, and we need to get professional help where help is necessary. In fact, it is always necessary. We need to get the necessary help so that we can get back to better relating to ourselves, because that's the only way we're going to have healthy and fulfilling relationships with others. Now, let's get into the heart of today's discussion, how to create and cultivate healthy intrapersonal relationships. Let us break it down to key steps. We're not going to be fancy about it. It'll be something very short, nice and sweet. Our first step is self-awareness. First and foremost, self-awareness is crucial. This first step is one that most of us miss. Self-awareness involves taking time to understand who we are, what we believe in, what our values, desires, strengths, and weaknesses are. Self-awareness is about observing our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors without judgment. It's asking ourselves questions like, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are my triggers? What triggers my stress or joy? What are my passions and goals? Who am I? What am I here for? What am I doing to get to where I want to be? To enhance one's self-awareness, we could try practices like journaling, mindfulness, meditation, or simply setting aside quiet time for reflection each day. The goal is to become an objective observer of your inner world. Objectivity is key here. So don't go in with judgment and preconceived notions. Just be an objective observer of your inner world. This will help you. This will definitely help you. Step number 2 is self-compassion and acceptance. This means treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that would offer a friend. A lot of us struggle with extending compassion to ourselves. It involves recognizing that imperfections and mistakes are part of the human experience. Imperfections and mistakes are part of our human experience. We all have imperfections, and that's what makes us human. Having self-acceptance is one of the toughest parts because it involves embracing oneself, flaws and all. It involves embracing the darkness, the light, the bad and the good alike. It is taking all of you and embracing all of you, even the things that we say are bad, right? It is about practicing being kind to yourself when you make a mistake instead of beating yourself up, instead of being a harsh critic to yourself. Try talking to yourself the way you would a dear friend. When you stumble or face difficulties, instead of harsh self-criticism, you can try practicing self-compassion. 1, by speaking kindly to yourself, exercising positive and healthy self-talk, forgiving oneself for mistakes, forgiving oneself for one's mistakes. Offer yourself understanding and compassion. Recognize that our struggles are part of our shared human condition. Powerful exercise is to write a letter to yourself from a perspective of a compassionate friend. This helps to shift the internal narrative from judgment to empathy. So if you find yourself in a situation that like you've fallen, you have stumbled, you've made a mistake. Now, instead of being harsh, take a step back and see yourself as you would a friend. Write a letter to yourself from, again, a perspective of a compassionate friend. Empathy will help shift this internal narrative that you have going on, this internal dialogue that you have. It'll shift that from a place of judgment and disappointment to you being empathetic to yourself. It is very important. The 3rd step is another vital aspect, which is self-care. And this goes beyond the occasional pampering sessions. Although those can be great too, it involves identifying unfulfilled needs, taking consistent and deliberate actions to meet one's needs by nurturing and caring for oneself, whether be it physically, emotionally, and mentally. It is imperative that one is consistent and deliberate in their actions to meet one's needs. It is important that when you think of your needs, the unfulfilled, unmet needs, you take deliberate and consistent action to having those met by nurturing and caring for oneself, physically, emotionally, and mentally. Self-care isn't just about these pampering sessions. It isn't just about pampering. It is about creating and maintaining a balanced routine that supports one's overall well-being. So some ways to practice self-care could include prioritizing sleep and rest, eating nourishing foods, engaging in physical activity that you enjoy, setting boundaries to protect your time and energy and your spiritual space as well, making time for hobbies and activities that bring you joy, making time for meetings or sessions with a professional that can help you where you are struggling to maintain a balance. Remember, self-care is a deeply personal aspect of one's life. What works for one person may not necessarily work for another. So it is essential to find practices that resonate with you as a being. Another one, which is the 4th step, is self-respect. Self-respect. Oh, guys, let's talk about this. Self-respect. Let's talk about self-respect. It means honoring your needs, your desires, and boundaries. It is about recognizing your worth and not settling for anything less than you need, desire, and deserve. This is about respecting your own limits, ensuring that others do too. Because remember, if you do not respect your own limits, your own boundaries, other people are not going to see the need to. And because you drop the ball on respecting the boundaries yourself, you'd think it's okay for others to overstep the boundary. It is okay to say no when something doesn't feel right for you. It is important that you communicate your needs and expectations clearly to others. And it is also imperative that you communicate those to yourself. Constantly remind yourself that this is my need, this is my expectation, whether be it from self or others. Ensure that you protect that personal space, your inner peace, your inner being, the inner harmony that you have going, that balance that you have going. You want to protect it. You want to maintain it. Boundaries protect your energy. When you set a boundary and honor that boundary and ensure that others honor the boundaries, you protect your energy and you ensure that you're not overextending yourself. Cultivating self-respect can be challenging, especially if we've been conditioned to prioritize others over ourselves. However, it is crucial for our well-being and it is imperative that we maintain this. Some steps to build self-respect include saying no when it is necessary, standing up for your values and beliefs, surrounding yourself with people who respect and support you, who respect your boundaries and support you even when you say no to what they want you to say yes to. Acknowledging and celebrating your achievements. You want to acknowledge and celebrate whatever little achievement, big, small achievements, celebrate them all, acknowledge them all, even if it's just you getting the dishes done. Celebrate that. It takes a lot of energy to get those done. Even if it's just being able to do what you set out to do in the morning, even if it's you going to the market and being able to stay on budget. A lot of us are not able to do that. Celebrate that. A lot of us are not able to stay within our set budgets. So celebrate that. It's an achievement. We're able to practice healthy financial habits. And when you're able to do that, celebrate that because you're also respecting the boundary that you set for yourself. That I'm not going to spend more than I earn a month. I'm not going to spend more than I need to spend. You see, those are achievements somehow. So go on, celebrate them. You've achieved something. Step number 5 is continuous growth. Continuous growth is a vital element. It is a vital element for the quality of our interpersonal relations. A healthy relationship with self is an ever-evolving journey of continuous growth. It involves commitment to continuous learning and development. It is about being open to learning, adapting, and improving. It involves embracing change, seeking new experiences, and being willing to step out of our comfort zones. Growth can be fostered by setting personal development goals, seeking and being open to feedback from trusted friends or mentors, even professional counselors if you are seeing one, engaging in lifelong learning through books, courses, or workshops, embracing challenging opportunities for growth. Embrace challenges as opportunities for growth. Embrace challenge as an opportunity for growth. Remember, growth often happens outside of our comfort zones, so don't be afraid to challenge yourself to step into new territories, unknown waters, and venture in there and explore the unexplored territories. Step number 6 is building self-accountability. It is the responsibility that we take for our actions, decisions, and their outcomes. It involves us acknowledging our role in both our successes and failures and making a commitment to improve continuously. It also involves one's understanding that yes, one may not be in total control of all life incidents, but we are responsible for what is in our control, learning to separate fault from responsibility. Yes, we're not always in control of our life circumstances, but we are in control of how the circumstances affect us. We have control of the areas of our lives we want healed and fixed. It is, in fact, our responsibility to fix and heal the brokenness that may have resulted from the life incidents that were not in our control, that were not consciously and intently caused by one's actions. Practicing self-accountability can lead to greater personal growth, improved relations, and increased success in various aspects of one's life. And it is imperative that we as people remember that if we're not accountable to self, we will not by any means be accountable to others. If you disrespect whatever the boundaries or the goals you've set, then you're not going to respect whatever goals or boundaries that are set by others. Because if you fail to be accountable to the most important person, the person that you have in your life constantly, which is you can't be accountable to another. Instead of being accountable, you will instead assign blame to incidents or people. You will instead shift responsibility. This is in no particular order, but just a few of the things that one can do to build self-accountability. And I'll just try to be brief. Examine one's beliefs and values. This is a place to start, in fact. How are your values impacting the person you have become or the person you are? How are your values impacting the person you are and have become? Do you live by your values? Or if not, you need to ask yourself why. Why is there a compromise? Try to find a way you can improve in upholding your values and beliefs. Because if you are not doing so, somebody else that comes into your life will not respect you and your values. They will not respect your time. They will not respect your boundaries because you're not necessarily upholding your values. You're not necessarily living by your values. And when I say your values, I mean core values. And then, of course, there are those beliefs that we've adopted and developed through life experiences. And if you find that you've, for instance, a pessimist as a result of life experiences, you value negativity, your values are negative, perhaps it's time to change that. If your beliefs are negative and negatively impacting your life, perhaps it is time to let some of those go. And number two, if you set goals, track your progress, set measurable term goals and keep a journal. You could also use a digital tool to monitor your progress. Regularly review your goals and evaluate your performance. That is number two. If you're setting goals, ensure to track progress. Ensure that you set measurable term goals. Keep a journal or a digital tool to help you monitor your progress and also have a regular review of your goals and evaluate your performance. Number three is be honest with yourself. Acknowledge both your achievements and areas where you fell short. Avoid making excuses and recognize the real reason behind your successes and failures, right? That is number three. And number four is take responsibility. Own up to your own mistakes without shifting the blame to others. Learn from these mistakes and identify ways to avoid them in future events. Number five is ask for constructive feedback, whether be it from peers, mentors, supervisors, and friends. Ask always for constructive feedback. Use this feedback to gain insights into your performance and areas of improvement. There's always room for improvement. Nobody's perfect. Remember that. 6, make adjustments. Be flexible and willing to change your approach. If something isn't working, be willing to change your approach. Implement new strategies and habits that can help you achieve your goals and to also better yourself to help you grow. 7, maintain consistency. Never drop the ball on yourself. Other people can drop the ball. Allow them if they want to, but you do not drop the ball on yourself. If you're not maintaining consistency, it does not teach people outside to maintain consistency when it comes to their relations with you. Develop routines and stick to them. Consistency is key to building habits and making sustainable progress. If you think you want to do something, if you want to start going to gym for better physical wellness, if you want your physical wellness to improve, you go to gym. And when you do that, you set a routine that helps you stick to the goal that you want to achieve, that helps you build a habit of going to the gym and making the sustainable progress necessary for you to achieve physical wellness, right? So consistency, if you want to come to a place where you're self-accepting and self-loving and well in your mental state, in your spiritual state, you need to develop habits. And when you build those habits, make sustainable progress by being consistent in engaging in those habits. 8 is regularly reflect. Take time to reflect on your actions and their outcomes. Use reflection as a tool for continuous learning and improvement. 9 is celebrate your achievements. I cannot say this enough. Recognize and reward yourself for meeting your goals and milestones. Recognize the changes you see since you've started taking consistent and deliberate actions towards your well-being. Celebrate successes. When you're celebrating your successes, that motivates you to keep moving forward. 10. Develop self-management strategies. Develop self-management strategies. It is one of those things that most of us struggle with. It could be time management or even management of our routines. It could just be even the littlest things. It is very important to develop self-management strategies, be it emotional management, be it eating habits that you need to manage. Whatever it is, just ensure that when you're engaging yourself, you do so to promote wellness in your being. Oh, beloveds, our time is gone. They're signaling time is up. So I will leave this topic here and we will continue with it in our next episode. But for now, quick recap. Remember, cultivating a healthy relationship with yourself involves self-awareness, self-acceptance, self-care, setting boundaries, building accountability, self-accountability, self-growth, and exploration of self. It is a journey and not a destination. It is one that requires patience and practice, but the rewards are immense. By fostering a loving and supportive relationship with yourself, you lay a foundation for a more fulfilling and balanced life. The self is indeed an exceedingly intricate and multidimensional construct. Remember, the most important relationship one will ever have is with oneself. It is the foundation upon which all other relationships are built. Nurture it with the love and care it deserves. I hope you found some valuable insights and practical tips to help you on your life's journey and your journey to self-discovery, healthy and fulfilling relations. Remember, this show is available to you on the various podcast streaming platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, pretty much every platform, including our website at www.agapewellness-center.com. Now, if you enjoyed and found this episode helpful, please share it with others who might benefit from it. Rate it, leave a comment or a review. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can also connect with us through social media. We are available to you on Instagram as at Agape Wellness Coaching, and you can also find us on our website at www.agapewellness-center.com. Until next time, take care and be kind to yourself. This is your host Mendes signing out until the next episode. Shalom.